Good morning. Let's see if I can remember this dream because it happened many, many hours ago. Um, so it was. The first thing I remember about the dream was checking out the scene, and it was set in this like Japanese style apartment. I remember wood floors. I remember lots of light coming in. It was very well lit with natural lighting, and there were those Japanese style sliding doors, and it was a very messy apartment. There was stuff kind of strewn about everywhere. There was lots of papers strewn about. The kitchen was very small, makeshift kitchen with a hot plate for cooking and like an ice box instead of a refrigerator. And um, and there was a blow up mattress instead of any kind of bed, and it was set up in the middle of the living room. And I'm kind of milling about in a in a in a big white bathrobe, and I turn on cartoons, and cartoons are just going on in the background, and I start, I guess, making eggs or something for breakfast, and I'm kind of cleaning things up, and I hear a hello, and it's the voice of my sister, and I get all excited. I'm like, oh yay, she's finally here. And it occurs to me that my sister has come to visit, and I can't stop yawning. And she's excitedly telling me about all these things and asking me about my husband and when he'll be back. I in this The information I already have about this dream is my sister is visiting from very far away. My husband is out on some kind of job, and we're, I think, perhaps a military family. And we're in this place that looks like Antarctica or something like that, or Alaska or something. It was very, very remote. There's nothing except for this one station, and it is these little apartments and some other structures built on top of these rocky icebergs. And it's beautiful, but when you look out, all you can see is beautiful water and short rocky cliffs covered in snow, and ice as far as the eye can see, and it's just endless like that. And she comes, and she's visiting from America or wherever, and she's talking and talking kind of fast and excited like she does in real life, and I can't stop yawning. I'm sorry. Ooh. And she's brought a bunch of candy and stuff, and I'm so excited because I take it wherever I'm living. You can't get stuff like that. And cartoons are playing in the background, and then we realize that, like, I look over and I see a woman, a little Japanese woman who is beyond beautiful. She looks a little bit severe and stern, and she's very elegant. She's kind of tall. She's very slow and precise with every movement, and she also has a little girl sitting with her, and she's kind of fixing her little girl and has set her up with some of the food that I made, and they're watching the cartoons very calmly, and I'm like, what are these people doing in my house? And I look over, and across from her, so this living room also, I forgot to mention, in the middle there's a big dip. There's like 2 or 3 steps that lead down to a flat space, and so there's like this hexagon shaped dip in the middle of the living room, and she's sitting on one side of it by the entrance into the apartment, and then there's a hallway that leads back to a very small bathroom, which is basically just a pot and a little spigot for running water. And then he's sitting on the other side of this little dip in thing. And he has a child. I don't remember if it was a little boy or a little girl. I think it was a little boy. But he was sitting with his little boy. And I was like, I have squatters in my own home. What the heck? And there was, down the hall, I believe there was a couple of other rooms, like a very crowded, very small room, and with it was filled with books and stuff, I think. And there was another room, and there was like a crawl space, and I think they must have been. It occurred to me in the dream anyway that they had been living in there at night and then coming out when we were gone. And my husband had just left the night before, and I was like, okay, so that's who's been leaving these wrappers or this or that, because I had seen signs of people in my house that weren't me. And I was like, what the heck? For some reason, I wasn't too freaked out. I was just kind of like, oh, really? And I told my sister about it, and she was like, what the heck? And she's like eating candy, like, what the heck? The stream was very anime. And so I go over to them and I'm like, hey, you're in my house. And the woman is like, she doesn't make eye contact with me. She just kind of turns away, scoops up her child, and goes over to like she just walks away somewhere. And then I go over to the dude and his child, and I'm like, hey, get out. You're in my house. And he's like, nope, not leaving. I noticed you have some man in here, so you can't kick me out because I'll tell the police that you're living with a man. And I was like, first of all, that's my husband who works for the military. And I don't know, for dream logic, at the same time, I'm kind of bluffing him because I don't know why, but if I get caught and he tells the police this, then I will get in trouble. So I don't know, dream logic. And I said, you're breaking a lot more rules than I am. And if I could tell them about you. And his eyes get really big, and he throws himself into this bow on the floor, and he talks really, really fast and basically begs me not to tell them, and for the sake of his child, and they have nowhere else to go. And I'm like, oh God, okay. And then I go back to like cooking the eggs or whatever, and my sister has this candy, and they both, with big giant eyes, they look at her and they look at the candy, and she's like, oh my God, okay, fine. Breaks off a piece, gives it to them. And I go to the back door to like throw out some stuff into like on the cliff or something, like scraps from the pan. And then I like feel breathing on my neck, and I'm like, what? It was the man. He was standing right there, and he was like, hey, by the way, there's a child there. He called it something else. I don't remember what, but he said some word that meant baby. And I looked where he was looking, and I saw this dream logic. I saw this tiny little, it was not, I mean, I don't know, it was probably like 6 or 7, but in this dream, and because of dream logic, it was really tiny, and it was kind of like scurrying around like a little anime character. And I was like, what the heck? And then it tried to hide from me, and it also was trying to like grab these little scraps of like egg bits and stuff that I dumped out of the pan and stuff its face before it got shooed away. And then it wedged itself halfway between the ledge of the porch and like the trim of the house, and like this little crevice. And I was like, really? You're gonna try to hide? I can see you. And so I scooped it up, and it was the most adorable little creature I have ever seen, except for maybe the man's child and that mysterious woman's child. They were so cute. And it was freezing cold, and I was like, good Lord, you are freezing. And it was freaking out. It was all scared. And I took it and I was like, calm down. I'm not going to turn you in. I'm certainly not going to make you live out here in the snow any longer. So just chill. I'm going to take care of you. And I bring it in and I turn around and I go to the man. Excuse me. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. So you're going to be the babysitter now. And he was like, what? But, and I was like, don't even. And he was like, okay. And he takes the child. And I go back to doing the kitchen stuff and trying to clean up a little bit, talking to my sister. And then I also turned to the man. I said, hey, you can't leave the house, but look at this place. I clearly don't have time to keep up with this. So your job now is to be the housemaid. And he's like, what? But, and I was like, don't you even. And he goes, okay. And so he starts sweeping everything up into piles and organizing everything. And then the woman with her child is back. And there becomes a scene where I guess her husband is this big fat white guy who's a total slob, and he's super abusive, and he had done some really awful things to her, and she thought she couldn't leave because of all this stuff, and he just made her feel awful. And at one point she is bound in a bunch of rope from him, and he does some awful things to her that I'm not going to go into detail about. And we witness this, and he knows that she's hiding in this place, but he's, I don't know, lots of weird dream logic details that I don't need to record. And so we actually do away with him in some nefarious way, I'm sure. And I tell her, I'm like, all right, I guess you guys can both stay here. This place is, this little tiny little apartment is going to be very crowded, but we're going to make this work because everybody is in dire straits in this whole freaking military complex village thing on these rocks in Antarctica. And that was it. That was most of the dream. And then after I dealt with them, I went for a swim. And yeah, I went for a swim in Antarctica. It was great. It was actually beautiful, and the water was fantastic. I've been trying to have dreams more about the ocean. There's a couple of types of dreams that I want to have more: is ocean dreams going underwater, and space dreams. And actually, in the last month, I have had two. This is the second ocean dream I've had that I've actually been able to go underwater and explore. It was so cool. Unlike the other ocean exploring dreams, there wasn't anything under the water except for like endless depth, and the blue of the water just got darker, darker, darker the more you went down, and or the deeper you looked. And so I kept popping up for air and looking around, and it was so incredibly beautiful. I remember just popping up out of the water and looking at the rocks dusted in snow, and how it was so bright because it was a very blue sky, and the sun came out and it was just reflecting off the blueness of the water and the bright white of the snow and the pale rocks. And I was just blown away by the beauty, and the intense beauty of it caused me to go lucid. And I was like, oh wow, I'm dreaming. Cool, this is such a cool dream. This is beautiful. I'm so glad that I got to do the ocean thing, and this is awesome. What else is around here? So I climbed up out of the rocks, and I decided, I was looking around from this new vantage point, and I decided, hey, I guess I'll launch myself into the air and fly around and look at this beautiful scenery. And so I took a leap of faith, and it's still scary most of the time when I start flying in dreams, because I usually have to jump off some high point. I can't figure out just flying into the air. I'm getting better at it, but it's still not quite there yet. So I fly, I launch myself off this cliff, and I start flying around, and then I guess I lose my lucidity, and I am back on the deck of that apartment, and my husband's there, and I said, I have to show you this. This place is a dream, and it's really cool. And I was like, let's go for a swim. And he's like, are you crazy? And I'm like, it's all good. This is a dream, so just come with me. And we both go, and we dive in, and we swim, and he's like, you're right, this is incredible. But I'm losing more and more of my lucidity. And I had been losing my lucidity level ever since the husband showed up. And oh yeah, that's what happened. There was a baby polar bear, and it was swimming around, and I was like, I think we should go. And so we start leaving, and the polar bear is kind of like pawing at us, kind of like playfully a little bit. But I was like, I'm not gonna mess with a baby polar bear, because baby polar bear means mama polar bear, and even if baby polar bear is timid and kind of playful, mama polar bear ain't gonna be like that. So I'm lucid. I become lucid again, and I swim away. Husband is behind me, and we climb up from the rocks, and I'm trying to focus very hard on stay calm, because if you freak out, you'll lose your lucidity, and the bear will get you. So just think about controlling your dream, and think about, I'm very calm. The bear is not going to reach me, and I'm going to climb this cliff, and I'm going to continue on in this dream to experience it, because I didn't want to wake myself up. It was a beautiful dream, and I wanted to fly around more and see the scenery. And I did. It was great. So the bear was at my heels, but I was somehow able to get out of the water, which was really hard that second time. Because the first time it was just like anything, just climbing anything in real life. But the second time, the weight of the water was very realistic. So when I got out, I was weighed down by all of my wet clothes and everything. And getting back on to the rock was very hard. But I did it, and I climbed back up to a high point, and I started flying around again. It was really great. Yeah, so that was that dream. I'm going to do a second recording and try to journal some of the other dreams that I had this week that were very strange indeed. Had an alien encounter. It was interesting. Oh yeah, I do remember seeing some soldiers, and they had a very vintage type of uniform. And I was like one of maybe a half dozen white people, and everybody else was Japanese. So that was interesting. And another dream that I remember, I don't remember if it was a part of this dream or not, but it was from this morning. I don't know how to explain this. Let's see. It was, I think it was this Native American man. He was really old, and it was something about outside of the gates, and what's outside of the gates is something. And it was this meadow, and there was it was a series of walls, one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, like endless walls that were made out of hi kitty, made out of these logs, like these narrow logs. It's just a wall of logs, and in the middle of each wall there was a pyramid shape cut out, so you could see through these walls by looking through these pyramid windows, but they were very large, more like a gate than a window. And he was in charge of keeping and maintaining those pyramids, keeping the shape and the magic that the shape made. And because I guess if no one maintained them with magic, then they would lose their shape and the wall would close. And looking out into the distance, it was a forest. So it was this meadow with the walls, one after the other, with the pyramid gates through them. And then it was just, you could see trees, and this very kind of like misty, sparkly sunlight shone through them in rays. It was absolutely beautiful, but it was also not eerie, but you had this feeling that the farther past, that each gate you would pass was further into some ethereal world that you would kind of dissolve into. Yeah, that's the best sense I can make out of it. And his job was to help the people that were supposed to cross into that world. And if one of the children like came wandering and they were playing games, that they didn't wander off through those gates because they wouldn't return. Yeah, that was it. He had a big staff that had it was a staff with like a wood knot on the top and then a little broken off piece at the end, and he used that to do this. And I don't know, he just kept doing that. So those are all the dreams I remember from this morning. If you have any dreams, I would love to hear them in the comments as always.